When former quarterback Colin Kaepernick took a knee during the national anthem last year, he was met with mixed reaction, with many fans taking a negative view, while most of the media didn't really take a position. But that changed this week. Well, we were, and we thought the whole taking a knee thing had died down since Colin Kaepernick is out of a job. But then came this from President Trump in Alabama last week.
Wouldn't you love to see one of these NFL owners, when somebody disrespects our flag, to say, get that son of a bitch off the field right now, out, he's fired. He's fired!
Those were fighting words, and the NFL came out swinging. Roger Goodell issued a statement, but none was more forceful than Patriots owner Bob Kraft expressing his disappointment with Trump, saying, "Our players are intelligent, thoughtful, and care deeply about our community, and I support their right to peacefully effect social change." But when players across the country took a knee this past Sunday, fans were not amused.
I'm just utterly and totally disgusted. Screw you, NFL.
But the media had a totally different read.
Do you think it's an anti-Trump sentiment that is making some players
Even some NFL commentators saw it that way.
I think our president should concentrate on serious issues like North Korea and health care rather than ripping into athletes and the NFL.
But clearly there was a disconnect with fans who did not see it as a protest against Trump, a disconnect DirecTV seems to understand.
DirecTV is announcing it is allowing at least some customers to cancel subscriptions to its Sunday night ticket package if they cite the protests as the reason.
And that, as they say, is bad for business. Well, true confessions, I was one of the ones with the disconnect. When I saw the booing and the knee-taking last night, I thought it was a protest about what Donald Trump said, and it was really kind of a separate protest, even though it took the same form as what Colin Kaepernick did last year about social justice for, black Americans. I even thought that the booing was directed at Donald Trump. So I think that a lot of people who were not so crazy about the performances last year of Colin Kaepernick and other in the media, because Terry Bradshaw was among them. Terry Bradshaw was, said that Colin Kaepernick is a pay forward for this, and it's disrespectful, and he definitely turned around when Trump said this. So all I'm saying is I'm among them, and I think, but it was largely a media-driven thing because, as we can see, the fans didn't feel that way at all.
No, they didn't, and it's interesting. Diane Hassan, I may be botching her name, she's been doing these focus groups in the Globe going back months, and she has a number of people who voted for President Trump, a number of people who voted for Hillary Clinton, and she said that her Trump people were just uniformly opposed to the players' action on this. I think that when it comes to something like this, you tend to look for the outlier to try to get an indication. So I have a focus group of one, but a friend of mine who is a moderate Democrat, I know he voted for Hillary Clinton, is just outraged over this and denouncing the players in really strong language.
But don't you think the media softened on this when Trump got involved?
I think that what happened was President Trump turned this into a partisan issue, and it's just like everything else now. People who are pro-Trump tend to side with Trump on this, and people who are anti-Trump tend to side with the players on this. But people have very strong feelings about the flag and the national anthem, even though the players say this is not a protest of the flag or the national anthem. And so you're starting to see some anger from unexpected quarters as well.
It is an interesting connection between last season's protest and these. It's also interesting the degree to which Colin Kaepernick has sort of been removed from the narrative in the past week or so. I mean, Sports Illustrated had a cover that featured a whole lot of people, a photoshopped image of them all uniting together. Did not include Colin Kaepernick.
It's crazy. Yeah.
And there's in all the discussion about it, it's amazing how little discussion there was about the issue of police shootings of unarmed African American men, which was the original subject matter. I think that the way I would view the way that the league responded, and I mean the players, the owners, everyone, was that there was a threat from a president saying that someone should be fired, that son of a bitch should be fired. That led to a sort of let's circle the wagons, the idea that the entire sport was being attacked, and that led to people like Bob Kraft, who gave a substantial amount of money to Donald Trump's campaign, nonetheless saying that I have to stand up for my players and I need to say that this was inappropriate?
Well, nobody, from the beginning, it was difficult for people to get what the issue was, and that's gotten lost, and I think that journalists played a part. I think Shep Smith used the word, were complicit in continuing to advance the story as if it were a flag issue, and it is not. Mm-hmm. It really is about police brutality and excessive force, which was what Colin Kaepernick was saying, which is what the other players have been saying who were supporting him. By the way, it was not dead. It was not front page news, but there was actually a boycott going on from a lot of people who were already boycotting the NFL on behalf of Kaepernick.
They kind of get in the media.
Well, that's what I'm saying, because he was blackballed effectively by the NFL. You're absolutely right. I will agree that this response, this unity, this fake unity response, and I call it fake, from all of the players and the teams, has absolutely nothing to do with the cause itself and everything to do with telling the president, you don't tell us what to do.
Exactly.
Now, I will say, however the polls are being split along racial lines and everything else, there is one poll that apparently is across the board where 57% of Americans say the players, however, should not be fired. You might be mad at them, but and people may misinterpret what this is about, flag or not, but they do not think the players should be fired.
One of the best pieces I think I've read about this came from Eric Reed. He plays for the 49ers, and it ran in the New York Times. And it was such a thoughtful piece about how, he was kneeling with Kaepernick last year and about why they chose to get down on one knee, and it was a gesture that represented, the flag at half-mast when there's a tragedy. And the problem, I think, with the fans is that, I've always thought this. Fans watch football, it's their escapism. It's 3 or 4 hours where they don't have to deal with reality. And when you have all these players, kneeling, and owners and coaches, there goes their reality. But there's this disconnect, as you said before, it's like, let's look at the reason why they're doing this. You see what goes on last night in Saugus with the guys and people burning their jerseys, and it's like, why are we doing this? Like, why can't we get to the real issue? Explore that. Why, have conversations about that. Why are these players kneeling?
Let me just add this, and that the whole thing about, and they're multi-million-dollar players, how dare they? They're not facing anything. You know what? The 70% of those African Americans still can't get a cab. As Chris Rock has said, no white man in the world would trade places with me, and I am rich. That's all needs to be said.